Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, we're going to be making a custom ring for our customer, Aaron. He emailed in with his budget and his design idea, and today we're going to make that happen. So he sent in, this is purple heart wood. It's a really special species with a really awesome color to it. That's going to be the liner for the ring. On the outside, we're going to have Meteorite. I love working with this material. It's just such an amazing, literally out of this world material. That's going to look great in the ring. And then for the inlay, we're going to kind of go crazy. So it's going to glow purple. And then some of the colors we're going to be using: obsidian black, Maui blue, bright sapphire blue, and then this nice violet color. The overall look, I'm going to kind of go for my deep space look, where I've got mostly black as the background and then all the other brighter, vibrant colors. Those are just kind of accents to it. And then for the inlay materials, we have quite a few again. So starting on my left here, we've got amethyst. I love working with amethyst. It makes rings look really nice. It adds a lot of depth to it, and a lot of good, nice color. Next up, we've got this black fire opal. Such an awesome, amazing material. It just fluoresces all of these wonderful colors. You've got reds, oranges, greens, blues. It just looks awesome. I love it. Next up, we'll be using Lapis Lazuli. I love this in rings. It's such a dark, vibrant color. If you didn't know, they used to use Lapis Lazuli in paint pigments. It's just that blue. Then the final inlay material is going to be Alexandrite. This is such a really cool and unique material. If you didn't know, Alexandrite, if it's exposed to UV light, whether it's a UV flashlight or UV light from the sun, it fluoresces a bright red. It's a really incredible property that it has, and I think it's going to look really cool in the finished ring. Anyways, what I want to do next is drop a quick sketch of the overall design. That'll make it a lot easier to visualize and a lot easier to make. Alright, I'm finished with my sketch, and you'll notice I've got all of my materials labeled as well as all the dimensions on there. That's just going to make the creation process go so much smoother. Now it's time to start machining down my meteorite blank. In its current state, it's a rough blank that we cut out using a water jet, and then I'll use a tungsten carbide boring bar to trim it to the exact dimension I need. Now that I'm finished with the inside, I'll put it on one of my expanding ring mandrels, and then again I'll be using tungsten carbide tooling to get the width precisely where I want it, as well as the outside diameter. And you'll notice I'm just removing a small amount of material at a time, because meteorite is naturally full of a lot of different fractures and inclusions and things like that, so you got to be very careful when you're machining it, otherwise you could break it. Now using a Sharpie, I paint the surface of the ring black, and then I use my calipers to scribe some lines right where I want to cut the inlay channel. Got the meteorite blank where it needs to be for now. We're going to do a couple of steps to it later. Let's switch over and do some of the inlaying steps. First, I'll pour out 4 individual vials of glow powder, and then I'll add a respective pigment to each one of them. Now let's move on to inlaying. I'm going to start with the Alexandrite because I've just got this little piece of it. I want to make sure to be very careful with it and utilize it exactly how I want to. And to create the inlay, I'm going to be using medium and super thin viscosity Astrotech CA adhesive. Now using tweezers, I go all the way around the outside diameter of the ring. First I'm inlaying the alexandrite because like I said earlier, we've only got a little bit of that, so I want to make sure to utilize it perfectly. Then I'll move on to some of the other inlay ingredients. You'll see I'm using my amethyst and lapis lazuli, but I'm going to wait to add the opal later. I'm going to use that to fill in all of the cracks. And you also want to be careful that you don't make any patterns on accident. It's really easy to accidentally space out all the materials very evenly, and then you're left with a really unnatural looking ring. Next, it's time to sprinkle in some of the glow powders, and you'll notice I switch between the colors quite often. You don't want to clump up any of the colors. You don't want a big patch of purple or blue or anything like that. So you just want to carefully sprinkle out little patches of color and just layer it up until you're above the edges of the meteorite. And then at that point, we can begin the sanding down process. Now it's time to trim down the inlay. To start out, I'm going to be using my roughest Dremel bit, and I'm just going to try to get rid of as much excess material as possible. Now because alexandrite is so hard in terms of Mohs hardness, it's really difficult to sand it away using a standard Dremel bit. So you'll notice I switch over to a diamond bit. That's just to grind down that alexandrite. Now that I've got everything flushed, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the sandpaper. I'm just going to get it sanded down perfectly smooth and ready to polish, but we're going to do the polishing later on. Next, it's time to add bevels to the meteorite, and normally I'd use my lathe for this, but because meteorite is so delicate, I'm going to be doing it by hand with the Dremel. This can be very challenging to get good, even bevels that are nice and sharp, but I was very careful, and you can see we're left with some really nice results. Now I need to hollow out the inside of the meteorite. I purposely left it really thick up until this point to give it some added strength, but before we add that wooden liner, we need to hollow it out. To do this, I have a special adapter that allows me to attach my Fortum tool into my lathe, and then I have a tungsten carbide burr that will be able to very gently machine out the inside of the meteorite. If I was using a regular lathe bit like I did earlier, it'd completely obliterate the ring. Now that I've got it to size, we'll set the meteorite aside and we'll go ahead and get started on that Purple Heart wood liner. To cut out our initial blank, I'm just using a set of standard wood hole saws. Now on the lathe, I'll machine it down to our exact specification. Alright, now I've got it perfectly to size, but before I glue the two materials together, I'm going to go ahead and rough them up using a really rough Dremel bit. That way the adhesive will have a much more secure bond. Now I'll use a belt sander to sand away all of the excess Purple Heart wood. Alright, now we're getting close. This thing's starting to look really good. Next, I need to trim down the excess Purple Heart and get this ring to size. Alright, I've got the size right where I want it. I'm going to switch over to sandpaper now and we'll give this a nice comfort finish. Now to protect the color of the wood and seal it in to make it waterproof, I'm going to be using a UV hardening resin. This is an extremely durable resin and it'll leave us with a really nice glossy finish. Then I'll quickly sand the surface of the resin so I can apply a second coat. Now I'll set the ring into my UV chamber and I'll leave it there for about 30 minutes to fully cure that resin. Now that I'm done using the lathe, we're going to go ahead and give the outside of the ring its final polish, so I'll do that now and we should be ready to etch it. Now for etching, I usually don't show my full detailed process on camera, but I've decided to do it this time and I'm just not going to label all of the fluids. First, the meteorite will be etched in an acid. Then we'll darken the metal using a blackening agent. Then we'll neutralize all the chemicals. And then give it a quick bath and a protective oil finish. Now as a finishing touch, I'll use some steel wool and highlight some of the ridges on the meteorite. So there's the ring finished. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I think all of the materials work really nicely together. And the Purple Heart on the inside, I think that's really special. I'm glad that Aaron was able to send that in just to really personalize this ring. But anyways, guys, as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this down in the comments below. That's how a lot of our content is made. We go through those comments, we have our conversations back and forth with you guys, and we come up with our ideas and we make them happen. If you're interested in getting a custom ring for yourself, we don't do them very often, but I will have a link to that form down in the description below. If you're interested in any other rings, we'll of course have a link to our website as well. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.